Hey everyone, welcome to this emergency bonus episode of Revolutions Per Movie. As you heard last week, I talked to Jackie Sharp and Jill Hoffman-Kowal of Target Video, who documented so much amazing punk and post-punk bands, and they mentioned a film called We Were There to Be There, which is a documentary about Target Video and the Cramps playing the Napa State Mental Hospital. So, I bring to you my conversation today with Jason Willis and Mike Plante, who both co-directed We Were There to Be There. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Jason Willis and Mike Plante. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Oh, well, I had to call an emergency meeting to record this because I was talking to Jackie and Jill from Target, and they're like, you have to talk to Jason and Mike. And so here we are. Before we get into your film, We Were There to Be There, I want to talk about your introduction to Target Video, because no one's going to make a film about these people and this event without it touching their core. So how did that happen for you both?
You want to jump in? You want me to do it? All right, I can do it. I had a
You're
friend,
alphabetical first, yeah.
Yeah,
fair.
Solid. I had a punk rock friend named Jack Boyd, and he loaned me that Black Flag video that they put out.
Yeah, amazing.
And, astounding, right? And
yeah.
I was, 13, 14? And, you know, all their videos have that kind of Whitman sampler thing at the end with, like, all the other shit that you've never, Black Flag. I came for the Black Flag, and then I stayed for what the hell.
Throbbing Gristle, Tuxedo Moon, Survival Research Laboratory, Zev.
Yes, right, exactly. Chrome, and then all the, Code of Honor Channel 3, these are the, I'm a little more conversant here, but they cast such a wide net of weirdness, and it all seemed equally valid. It's kind of the same as research, where it was just like, okay, I had a little entry point here, but holy shit, this is completely blowing my mind. And so seeing that stuff and how, obviously punk rock representation on video was minimal. There's Night Flight. Maybe there might be like one or two little morsels on MTV, but by and large, I got into the music before I was old enough to go to shows. I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, and there was a decent scene there, but I wasn't able to access it. And so this was just a completely alien planet to me. It just seemed like an alternate universe that was happening at the parallel time and so incredibly full of energy. And the footage was so killer. And I mean, they really, finding out later that they were doing multiple shoots and making the most of what they had with like a single or maybe two cameras, but just, I couldn't figure any of that out. Like I'd also then a little bit, maybe around the same time, I saw those Flipside video fanzines. You remember those?
Yes, absolutely.
1 and 2, I got them both. And that's Al with one camera zooming in. And, that feels like more what I expected. But the Target stuff was so fucking, the sound was fantastic.
Also, one of the cool things they did was they caught Black Flag in a moment of they're not so serious yet.
Right.
Like they're being self-deprecating. They're doing like jokey interviews. Henry Rollins is like, hey, watch, check it out, babe. And
getting his first tattoo of his,
TV party video. It's like, they had not yet just crawled into the Manson depths of like, we're here to scare you 24/7.
Right. I saw Black Flag.
It's one of the few,
quite a different experience.
Yeah, and it's one of the few eras that they were one of the few people that captured it because bands let their guards down with them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. They would stay there for, it was a relationship. It wasn't just they showed up to the show and didn't know them.
Right.
They perform at Target Studios and hang out all day. And that interview is so great. The TV partiers thing.
Yes.
Whatever. It's charming as hell. And plus there's footage of Dez that, on that tape. And which I know.
Dez with his like weird.
The hat.
Like, and the like he's going for the like Ramon, like bangs and down his eyes. You're just like, who is that? And it's like, that's Dez.
Right. The voice that comes out of that face is so like, holy smokes.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, unlike Jason got to see bands play. I never got to see any band play. I grew up in rural Colorado, and like when me and my girlfriend at the time, when we saw Gummo, Harmony Korine's Gummo later in life, we're like, we were at that party. No, with where we smashed all the furniture and Mark Gonzalez was there. We were at that party. Like, no, it's just America, small town America. So I don't think anyone, even Flag, I don't think the DKs, I think nobody came to, it was Grand Junction, Colorado. So you had to go through it. If you were going Salt Lake to Denver, and maybe I was young, same thing. So, by the time I find a lot of these bands, they're gone. But I don't remember a record store. I actually found stuff through videos like Target Video and Flipside.
Sure.
And, Repo Man comes out when I'm 14, and that makes it the most important film ever made. Oh, I get beat up every day in school. I get thrown into trash cans and lockers every day at school, but I'm going to leave this town. This is only a short period of time. And by watching that film and Suburbia, which has a lot of complexities to it, watching these things like, oh man, I'm actually not different. I'm just stuck in this town and I'll get out of this town. And I think a lot of the Target videos, I'm guessing, I did have friends who were like for real punks that got into it at the right time. And like we played soccer together as little kids. We lost track and I found them later. I was like, oh my God, you like punk too? One of those things. But the skate shops in town, they had a lot of videos. And so like Wheels of Fire, all the Bones Brigade stuff came out and they had Target video stuff. I'm sure they had Flipside stuff too. And so it was just a connection. Well, I skate, so this music makes sense to me. And, it was a safe place. And then to watch, there were so many of these Target videos. And of course, the artwork looked cool. I like the music. And, we say it a lot in Q&As. By the time some of these came out, they were already time capsules. Because they're all, especially, he misses, well, he's not there. Let's see, he's not, I can't remember if Jill's in LA when The Mask is happening, but that's like, it's 6-8 months. So they still catch a lot of that early stuff and all the early SF stuff. And I'm watching it in 84. Like these people are dead, but thank God for the video. Yeah. Thank God for these videos.
It was amazing how fast time moved.
Yeah, even by the time I saw the Throbbing Gristle one, like Psychic TV was full on, and Chris and Cozy were doing their thing, and it was like, it's just so funny to be like, oh, I missed it. But then it was like, yeah, you were 9, or you were 10. Like, it was the same for me, where there was just a store that had these tapes together. Mm-hmm.
Like under glass, costing like $20 or $30, something prohibitive.
I knew somebody who owned the record store, and I was just a kid, but it was kind of a goth store called, at the time it was called The Ooze.
Goodness.
And so you could just kind of borrow them, and he had like Lydia Lunch stuff and
like the Kern stuff, or
yeah, and also the SST Raymond Pettibone stuff.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and like Serge Rome.
Pettibone. The ones I've got is like the Weatherman '69. These are probably a little later because he's doing like Patty Hearst and all of his kind of influence stuff.
Yeah, and then eventually being able to find like the Dave Markey stuff, like Teenage Love Dolls and Teenage Love Dolls and all that. So it was a really kind of awesome time because, again, like you said, I did see the Dead Kennedys, but like on the Target thing, they're just like a different band already, and like,
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, it's kind of amazing they still exist in any format and weren't around much longer. But yeah, I feel like reading about bands or the Target videos or Night Flight were my introductions to things before being able to find any records. So you'd get Maximum Rock and Roll or someone give you an old, like New York Rocker or something, and you'd read about these things and fantasize, what does it sound like? Because the descriptions were so wild, and Target, then you'd be like, oh, I don't know if I like this, but I'm glad I'm seeing it. And then it haunts you, and then you love it.
Well, for the longest time too, fanzines and everything, punk rock in particular, is like black and white, shitty photocopy. So Target almost felt like it was in 3D or something, because it's full color, and I'm not a quality purist by any stretch, but it just felt really immediate and you could freeze frame and look at shit, and kind of dissect it if you're like all of us.
You can see who's in the crowd too, these fanzines don't talk about all the people going and Joe did a pretty good job. I mean, we can get to Napa. He did a pretty good job of like capturing who's there. And maybe that was just to show friends, which is kind of funny too, because it is such a small thing. But, again,
or to get B-roll coverage, because he would
exactly
use it to mask edits.
thinking about editing and stuff. And so, but, because again, like I'm 14, 15 finding these, and these are still adults doing stuff. And I spent the last 4 years people telling me that heavy metal is the thing to do. And I do still really love Iron Maiden, but and that was like, you look this way and the chicks look this way, and you go to an arena and you go to a sports arena to see them, and you're going to be 2 miles from the band. So that's how you do it, man, because that's important. Look how much money they're making. They must be good. And then I see a thing like, holy shit, man, this is like my living room. This is like, or the video store I got the video. It's not bigger than the place I just bought this. And then to see people, they're older, but it's attainable in a way. It's like the kids you knew who graduated, but you're still kind of friends, even though they're 19 and you're 14. And so it was still blowing my mind. And again, it helped save me. Like, okay, here's a path to a better adulthood than other things.
That's amazing. It did. I think it did save a lot of people's lives, because it just showed, it took you out of the loneliness and the isolation of being like, oh God, why am I just like weird things. Why is that a problem for people? But you were talking about people in the audience. I did get a really amazing message from Greg Turkington, who does Neil Hamburger. And he said on the SST tour VHS tape that Target filmed, he's in the audience. He was at that show.
Oh, no way.
And he's like, you can see me at the Meat Puppet thing. And now I'm trying to freeze it and I'll be like, where's Greg? Like, what does a 16-year-old Greg look like? But yeah,
who in this crowd would become Neil Hamburger?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's in the crinkles?
I mean, most of them, but
so, you obviously, you leave, you get out of the small town, you move, you meet your people, you embrace, film and music and literature, and you grow. And then now you've both made like documentaries and other, short films. I had the Giuseppe film at my video store.
So it's so Portland. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really exciting to put this together. When Jill and Jackie were like, "Oh, you need to talk to these people." I'm just so blown away that I was not familiar with this film. I feel really kind of stupid because it's so necessary for a missing component of my knowledge of Target and also access to what Joe, Jackie, and Jill were making. How did you two come together to start this?
I think we've been talking about it for a while. Just like, you just always want to learn more about something, and it's become a little bit of an excuse for us. Like, oh, will you make a documentary about something to learn about it? Because I did a film zine in the late 90s when I was still living in Tucson called Cinemad, and it was an excuse to call somebody up like, hey, I have a magazine. And it was still okay for you to be nobody doing this. It's right before cell phones, so people kind of take your call. You could call trade unions and be like, I have a magazine. And it really was available. It's the end of the zine era, so you could get distribution. So I wasn't lying. Like, I will interview you and people will hear about you and your film. And so it ended up being not punk, but experimental and like some weird underground, the underground version of film. And so making a film isn't unlike that, where nobody's told your story. It helps if you're a fan, like you're saying. CNN wasn't knocking down the door, like figuring out exactly which part of Van Ness Avenue was this warehouse. It's not hot news, but it's important to us. And, and me and Jason have always been of the mode, like, this stuff is important to the two of us. It's probably important to like 50 more people. And if we stumbled along something like this, we'd be so happy. And we're very, very lucky that we're the people who get to make it. So we were kind of kicking it around. And eventually I just got to meet Jackie, and because we both lived in LA at the time. And then, it was kind of like, it was just like a 3-hour lunch and just kind of showing that I wasn't a crazy person that I would finish, and And so I was like, me and my friend love this. And we're actually trying to make a Target Video documentary. And look, half of this was like, where is this archive? Do we make sure this archive's okay? And then Joe actually had been taking care of it for quite a long time. And, and he lived up, I will always forget what town he was near. But when we went up to interview him, we landed in Portland and then drove north across the border in about an hour. When he lived up there, it was a while up in the woods,
to meet Joe.
Joe, where he was living at the time. And then, Jackie we talked to in LA, and then we actually talked to a lot of people. Paul Rossler, who I know you just talked to, which was a great interview too. Super great. I actually got to know KK because of the film stuff. Because I worked at a festival and he was on a jury, which was totally me. Nobody else here. But it was like, well, this guy, he's a production designer. He's been nominated, and it's purely just like, he's in the Screamers is the important part. But so.
Oh, I know. One of the greatest drummers of all time.
And super sweet guy. And then along the way, like interviewed Penelope, had a brief interview with Jello. We talked to a lot of people, and it was going to be a larger Target doc. And we didn't want to not pay people. And I've done documentaries where you use clips from famous films, and there's a way to do that where no one's getting ripped off, but you don't pay crazy fees.
Yeah, you get away with it, right?
Right. Yeah. There's like a time limit. Is that right? Like, and it has to be historically, like it needs historical importance. There's like kind of a loophole, right?
Except you still have to pay a lawyer. Yeah. So I always love talking to people like, I only used 15 seconds. Like, well, they'll sue you. What happens? They're cease and desist. But so you pay a lawyer like $4,000, which is not nothing, but it's less than like, okay, so Giuseppe, we have clips of movies he was in because it makes sense. The lawyers do this thing where the way you're using it is fine. I think you're using too much with 2 minutes. Can you make it 1:20? Then you have this discussion, and it actually is. It gets you to the point where you really feel like you're not ripping people off. Like, I need to get this to the point where the character cries. It shows that what you think to be true. Blah blah blah. So we didn't want to do that with this because these were our heroes. And so in the process of raising money, it became a little bit more clear that like, okay, we're going to need a hard focus. And everybody we talked to, who are non-punkers, they were like, they liked the story, but then no one's going to give us money because they just weren't big enough fans and they didn't know most of the bands. And then it comes down to the thing like, why don't you just do something about Devo and the Dead Kennedys? Like, why do you need, even Black Flag is, there's still a cult, but it's Devo's the one band that kind of is known out of the whole scene. Sure. And so at the end of the day, we're like, all right, well, we have this event that happened that is pretty clearly a fascinating story. And we were the same, like everybody. We're just like, how the hell did they do this? Like, what is going on?
Yeah. How did the Cramps play the Napa State Mental Hospital?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's after like one after one crazy thing is happening in that community that we, through the interviews, we found out, these Target people were kind of witness to a lot of this, and they were integrated into a lot of the weirdness that was going on. So it made sense once we learned more. But for sure, the first time you saw that video, the Cramps at Napa, did it make any sense to you at all? I mean, it just seemed so confusing. For one thing, it's very dark.
Yeah, it's a black and white like TV camera where like if it hits a light, it strobes, it makes a streak across it.
Yeah.
And you're like, is this cool or not? Like, I can't tell. Like, people seem to be enjoying it, like the people who live there.
Right. There is is this exploitive?
The great thing about your film is that I understood it for the first time.
Right.
And a lot of it is, who these people are. Like, I didn't know that Joe was in the Navy and was kind of pissed about it. And it was also amazing. Is it Lincoln Mitchell in the film who's quoted as saying, San Francisco was a really conservative place. And you're like, what? Like, I've never heard that in my life.
Right.
So, I'm starting to get a sense of like, oh, Joe gets out of the Navy. He's working with Christo and getting a $1 check, which is amazing. You show in the film. Like he gets paid $1 and he just finds something that has anger in it. And he's like, why is nobody documenting this? He has the old heavy camera with the long umbilical tube coming out into the, probably like 1/2-inch tape thing.
Right. Which was a revelation, which
it was.
Yeah.
The immediacy of that, it's like, it's hard, I guess, for us to really wrap our heads around what a game changer that, and it looks like security footage or something to us now. And it's, briefcase on your shoulder or whatever, but it's astounding.
And you got the footage of him on a ladder, which Jill and Jackie I was like, how did you capture the footage? Oh, Joe was on a ladder. And I was like, what? And you see it and you're like, wow, like that is so gutsy.
And you had to plug into the wall too back then.
Right.
It's not that mobile.
They had like security making sure that nobody, Sam or whatever is making sure nobody unplugs the thing. And yeah.
But on the other side of this conservatism, it's also amazing to find out that they're talking about like, oh, there was NEA grant money for alternative art spaces. And you're like, oh, what a different time. Like, how lovely would it be to have an idea and have somebody be like, oh, just try it out. Well, here you go. It's not that much.
Yeah.
So, you have you put it in great context with like, Chris Burden doing his pieces and just everyone kind of like a weird mashing of new music, new art, new film. That's kind of like already left like the Warhol New York thing behind. So like there's a total empty space that is going to be documented, and, research did that as well, did great documentation of like a newer scene. But your film also, I got to see things that I hadn't seen. I had not seen the footage of the mutants playing the deaf
school for the deaf.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Such amazing footage.
There's so much happening in that little short clip, isn't there? Where you see those kids and the translator, and it's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful because the kids are like super into it and they're excited it's being filmed. And, there's the Frank Zappa looking dude doing the doing the sign language.
Yeah.
You do that great thing where you kind of like let us hear it silent for a while. And that's when I was like, oh my God, these guys are brilliant. Like that would not have necessarily been something I thought of if I was making the film, just to like let it lie there a bit and experiencing it without sound, the energy and the sights and just being a kid sitting next to another kid and just being excited that you're out of class. That's all it takes. So I just thought that was a really beautiful choice that you did together. So
there are two shows that they played that day, one to the really young kids and one to kind of teenagers, and they're both on the Blu-ray that we put out. And it kind of took forever to find that footage. A lot of the mutants footage that we were able to use, I think, it hadn't come out any other way. There's a whole mutants doc, in fact, on the Blu-ray. They're sort of a lost magic band to me of that moment.
Totally.
There's so much art school happening there. There's so much enthusiasm and weirdness and uniqueness going on with them. And sadly, by the time that they, released their album, it was several years into, they'd written, probably 3 albums worth of material by that time. And then the album itself kind of gets hidden and it's not as raw as their earlier stuff. And a lot of, so they're not going to be on some Killed by Death comp or whatever, doing this kind of more, I think super interesting, but it's a different vibe, than their stuff. But that they played so many weird, they're art school kids, which it turns out everybody in Target, they were all art school kids. And I don't know why I didn't figure that out, but it runs through their ethos so completely, because like you were talking about the Warhol thing and everything, that still probably seemed unattainable to a lot of folks, but there's this trickle down that happened where it entered into the kind of DIY realm. And so you've got these like backyard homebrew versions of a lot of those notions. Warhol came up a lot when we were doing interviews with these people. They all talked about reading Interview magazine and what an inspiration he was. And, I hadn't put that together. It's kind of like when you hear like Alice Bagg loved Elton John. Okay, right. I guess that makes sense. Sure. Why not? But it's the same kind of thing. Like, okay, right. What were the options and what could the ingredients possibly be to make the thing that we were ready to consume? And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think we even asked everybody, like, we had this, what did you have?
Right.
Because almost to a point, every single one of them are in the first wave or very shortly thereafter. And if they're not in the first wave, there's no way in hell they heard about the first wave. Like, this stuff is still not on TV. We all know how many of these bands never toured. Records didn't come out. And so it's pretty incredible. And that's why New York is not the same as London, is not the same as LA, is not the same as San Francisco. And it's pretty fascinating how they all kind of created stuff. But then, yes, Bowie had such an effect on all these people. I think that came up a lot. Warhol. And they really, we know all the famous stories. But yeah, I don't think we realized they all met. Then Ted from Flipper went to art school with them too.
Yeah,
like they were just cool kids.
He's at
in
the
art
Napa
school.
show. You can see him in the footage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was his PA.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we know? I can't remember if we knew that the Mutants opened. Did we know that?
There was so much confusion when we went into this. People couldn't, if you read the various stories of it, they played first, they played second. They weren't even supposed to be on the bill. Oh, it was originally their show and the Cramps jumped on, and all of this stuff that we ended up, finally getting to clear up because, whatever. A lot of people are tripping. A lot of people are old. There's a lot of reasons why people might not remember.
So funny because that came up in the Desolation Center documentary, and my conversation with those people is like, oh, acid was a big deal in the first wave of this punk movement. And me discovering punk rock kind of like on the, during like a straight edge hardcore movement.
Right here. Right.
7 Seconds, Minor Threat, all that stuff. It was like, what? No, they didn't do acid. And then you're looking, you're like, yeah, fucking A, they did acid. How else could they do what they do so fearlessly? Oh, it's so funny to be so naive about it. What was also really fascinating is you hear the word mental hospital and you have a certain idea in your mind of what this place was. This was so interesting, the history of it. You talking to like the Alan Gill who worked there, who was so insightful. But to just realize this was a place, you can't do this anymore, but you could self-check in and be like, if you were a person that was like, I cannot exist out in the world, I need help, you could check yourself in. It was also a place that had their own farm. So they were doing like, they had chickens and cattle, and they'd had a textile, factory where they all worked. So it was like its own ecosystem that the people lived in. And then how later through Reagan privatized it, took all that away, basically made this place not an option at all, is just one of the through lines that I never would have thought about without your documentary. So was it easy to find people who had worked at this or had been at it that were part of the hospital?
Alan was my friend's dad. That's how we found him.
What?
Yeah. And actually, I think for a couple of years, I had some roommates. It was funny. All of us were like in between relationships and bigger places. And then Caitlin Gill, who also she does silkscreen. She does silkscreen posters. We thought that was a nice circle, unbroken. But her parents came and I was like, where are you guys from? Napa. And in my head, there's only one thing that I got sober a long time ago. And I was just like, what do you guys do in Napa? And like, oh, we work at the hospital. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding. I got questions. Wow. And they were both, it's her dad and her stepmom, and they both work there. And it was foggy at first, but it was kind of great because it was the same thing. The whole reason the magic of this thing happens because nobody was thinking anybody would care. except the people there. And they actually were calling them clients, the clients of the hospital, because you could just walk out. There's the good story. We left it into. Everyone's like, there was an escape. It's like, you could kind of just walk out. you, you know, and then you could walk away. It wasn't locked down,
Right.
which is a different kind of hospital. And they often, the workers would be like, oh, they'll be back.
Right.
Or they won't, and that's great because maybe they got some shit together and they get a job and go along their way, along the path that they've chosen. But and the more I talked about it there, because multiple bands, we bring that up. Some bands did play there, and she thought she wasn't at the Cramps. She was there because she was working, but not actually seeing the band. And Alan saw a lot of stuff. And so the more we talked, and I think they could have gotten us in touch with more people, but it was foggy who was there and who wasn't. And Alan, like, basically was the person we needed. And we're like, well, this isn't going to be a full feature. So we don't need to get 10 people. And, and then it came up. I should say, quickly. So since we've had screenings, we're not at most of the screenings, but I did just have a screening up at Sacramento in this amazing micro cinema called Dreamland. And 3 people from the California State Hospital system were there, including one guy was pretty high up, and then another guy was like head of communications for all of the hospitals. And they were just like, this is awesome.
Because in the film, it's interesting. There is this kind of like, there's some people who are very, let's just say, for a lack of a word, have a hippie ethos working at this place.
Yep.
It's a kind of a communal, spiritual, helping people thing. And then it sounds like there were also people who were like, oh, some people are going to get in trouble for putting this on who work here, which was really surprising to hear. Because at first I was like, oh, it seems like everything's all cool. And then it was like, no, some people at this place were like, don't ever do this again. So that was wild.
Admin.
It does seem like something you can get away with anything once kind of thing, and then when people figure it out, they're like, okay, maybe that's the last time we're going to have this happen. But and this is something that if you read about it, you'd conjure up all sorts of ideas in your head about what it is. But because there's this video document, we actually can see this crazy mishmash of young and old punks and clients, the whole interaction that's happening. And so when we got Alan to talk, I mean, Mike and I were just high-fiving each other over the phone as he was saying stuff. It was because he was just basically telling us everything we wanted to hear. He really had kind of a locked in, and his mentality and his approach were coming from a punk rock place. He's helping mentally challenged. He's coming from a very different ethos, and yet, on the Venn diagram, we obviously intersect pretty handily. So It worked out really well, but that he was able to fill in so many of the gaps that we then later researched, about what was happening within the healthcare system and how this is, actually, it's a great rock and roll event, but using it and exploding out from there about what was changing about America and what, where our priorities were and who we were as a country for a little while and who we became in very short order after that, which I think punk rock does as well. If you look at the punk from 1978 versus the punk from 1983 or whatever, it's a very different world. It's gotten substantially less playful, less free form. If you come from hardcore like I did, I loved hardcore, but you knew what hardcore was going to sound like by and large. I mean, every once in a while you get a void or something, but by and large, you kind of knew what you were in for a few years there, and it was sharing the reality of where everything was at that point. So the weirdness of the Cramps and the weirdness of the Mutants and the weirdness of all the other stuff Target did, if they'd started documenting things later, it would be very different. I mean, you look at the trajectory of who they have, and by the end it's, MDC and Crucifix, very different than Zev,
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of amazing when you look at all the things Target filmed. There's just so many things I'm like, what? They captured that? Where is that? They were there. the fact that they could do things like you mentioned, like Zev, which was like very few people were aware of him, but then film Iggy Pop and Devo in a really like professional manner and have their trust too is fascinating. But getting to the performance of the Cramps in this thing, because we saw this with no knowledge of what we were getting into except the cover of, like that cartoon cover that was, decorated, this VHS tape that was so striking and kind of frightening already. But it's so funny. Whenever I watch the Cramps footage, I know it forwards and backwards. I know every beat. I know when a person's going to stand up and turn around and start dancing to the audience. I know when somebody's going to grab the microphone and scream into it. I know all the band. It's so weird because it'll be like 20 years since I've seen something like this. And I'll be like, you watched this nonstop as a kid.
Yeah.
Because you were just like, oh my God. Like, first of all, when do I get to see the Cramps in real life? But also like, what is this? Like you said, the one camera black and white thing led kind of an institutionalized thing to it. So even before I knew what Target was, I was like, was it somebody at the facility, like having to film the people who live there for security? Because the lines between, there's no stage. And the lines between who came with Target, who are in the Mutants, who are the people who live in this facility, and the Cramps are very blurred.
Yeah, we had we should say Field of Vision eventually were the people who gave us the money. They're very, very great journalistic video company, nonprofit now, I think. And everybody there, they were like, they loved the story. And we came into it like, well, here's the story. And part of being a punker in these lyrics is we want to tell the story of the clients, the people who were in it in the hospital as well. It's very interesting. And they needed a social issue angle, but we were all happy. That's exactly what we all wanted. And
right. That was kind of the secret agenda behind the whole Target thing, in fact.
Yeah. And bless them, they gave us, we need a little bit more money to pay for, we paid Target for their footage. We paid every band, every song. And but we
all the photographers, all the artists.
Yep. Yeah. Ruby Ray, Jimmy Jacoy, and Jill. And I mean, lucky us too. There were so many amazing photographers in that scene too. So we had a lot. We have so many more that we could have put in. But they have so Field of Vision has a lawyer, and he was great. He really helped us, and he helped us do some, whatever's not Target. Like, we'll use some found footage. Is it okay for us to use it? Yes. Where's it from? We do all that work, so we're not stealing from anybody. But he did get to the point. He's just like, so do you have releases from all these people in this video? We're like, dude, no. And,
wow.
And the first, he was, and that's his job. It was funny to us. And we were just like, okay, first off, sadly, I really doubt many of these clients are still alive. They were not young when this happened. They were not great at taking care of themselves. And maybe a few of the people who were in the hospital for real, it's been a very long time. And there's no way we're going to be able to track them down. And I was like, if you want to, also the hospital had okay records, they're obviously better now. It wasn't people were coming and going. So anyway, then he said, well, somebody like that woman who's constantly screaming into the microphone, you don't know, maybe she is a different person now. Does she hide that she was in the hospital or not? And I don't.
But this could be incredibly embarrassing.
It could be so embarrassing. And I don't want to slam this guy because he's doing his job and he was nice about it. And it's a valid question. And the first thing we said is like, well, that is that's our whole mission here is these people are like all of us, and it's a path that they went on, and they had, if the cliche is true, they have a mental condition that needs help, and the state is helping them and get them back on their feet, and they can get back to it. It's not about trying to make them normal. It's about just trying to help them. And we used to have this, and we don't. This governor destroyed it, and we're still getting fucked today by what he did to the whole mental health system. And then it paused, and I was like, also, she's not a client there. That's just a punker that came along.
I know. It's so funny because, like, even, this is an amazing period for the Cramps because Bryan Gregory is still in it. And there's very little footage of Bryan Gregory except for some music videos.
And he's the coolest of the cool.
Yeah, they're doing, like, Rockin' Bones and Human Fly and TV Set. And again, I finally got, my first punk show in quotes was the Cramps. I finally got to see them.
Oh, wow.
And I got to see, the sweat and the gristle that's in this video. Like, Lux sweats more than Iggy Pop, I think. Like, it's just, you can just feel the gelatin rolling down him. And then in the meantime, like, Bryan Gregory is just like, I'm a rock star. Like, he's just effortless. But at the same time, it's this funny thing where you're like, I can't tell if like Nick Knox is comfortable with this. I can't tell if Poison Ivy is comfortable with this. Like, it does have a little bit of a thing where it's like, oh, that sounds cool. And then they get there and they're like, all right, this is cool. But there's still like, it takes a while for the two minds to meet in a weird way. The two scenes to meet. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that was part of the fascinating thing about this documentation of the Cramps at this facility is you see in real time the crowd figure it out, the Cramps figure it out, and then Target, you can just see that it's the kind of like Joe in a funny way is a lot like when the Maisels make something. It's like they just kind of know, no, move the camera over there away from the Cramps. This is where the action is. This is where the art is. This is where the story is. In Gimme Shelter, it's not about the Stones playing. It's about the Hell's Angel tripping out and making facial distortions. It's somebody crying in the audience. It's like, I think that Joe had a really good sense of when to pivot.
That's a great point, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He really, because it is, it's a footage where there's a lot of swishing and panning, and like you're saying, there's strobing on the lights and all of this other stuff. But boy, he captures, there are a couple of shots there that you couldn't have staged if you were doing choreography. You couldn't have staged them better, where this happens, that happens, the next thing, here's a guy banging his head over here, here's this. It's astounding. And Lux, talk about connecting with the audience. At some point, I mean, they knew there was a kindred spirit there too. And it's the same if you look at the Mutants footage, which, was lost forever, and it's on the Blu-ray, but it took forever to find. It actually ended up getting found after all the footage was transferred.
Wait, so Target didn't have
Target? They didn't know where it was for 40 years, however long it.
Where did you find it?
in the collection, it was there.
In the collection, but like it was labeled something like food market.
I think the box it was in said something else, and then the actual tape said Mutants at Napa. But it was also, this is reel to reel. It's not in a case like a VHS box. It was actually more like audio tape. You see that? Yeah.
Yeah. And is this so this was found at the Punk Media Research Collection then?
That's who found, because once the whole collection got transferred over there, and which Mike really helped facilitate as well. You can talk about it because it's, thank God. But, and then, all the archive work that they're doing there, it was found, and the footage it's the same thing you're talking about, where there's this warming up period where, because Sally in particular really connected with, everybody in the crowd. She's a wonder to me. I don't think she said a false thing in that whole interview that we did with her. Every line was a total gem.
But she's great.
She's so great. And all of them really were amazing people.
In your film, she says about the Napa State thing, she's like, we could have been in here.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And like, it was so poignant.
And also she stressed how much joy and just how there was nothing ironic about it. There was there was no mockery. They weren't looking down. This was a shared experience, that really, and that's the thing I didn't realize that I was getting when I was watching it, but that's why it always felt kind of okay to me, because I had the same trepidations that probably any person with a moral center would have, about that, where this could potentially go. But the footage of them, you see that warm up, the same thing. And by the end, they are swarmed on that, I guess you could call it a stage, but they're just completely covered.
There's a few steps.
Yeah. And I love the guy who's such a good, like, he has a really incredible dance move that I just was like really early. He's kind of one of the early adopters of being into the show, and he's just smile on his face, and he's just like, dancing next to the band, like back and forth and back and forth. And it's just
Is
like,
it the guy in the suit?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He is. Alan told us a little bit. We didn't really put it in. And he didn't say anything bad, but he's just like, oh, that's this person, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, he knew them
And
well.
he did know that
Right.
guy. And he's like, yeah, every time a visitor would come, he'd put a suit on. He tried to convince the people he worked there. He wasn't
And
a
was
client.
successful multiple times.
That's so funny because that is
That's
like,
so awesome.
that's a trope in so many comedies where it's like, oh, and then right this way, Mr. You know,
Right,
oh
right.
my God.
Yeah.
So Mike, what is the status of the collection then, if you've been part of it?
Yeah, well, you know, I've helped get some other archives to USC, but this is all Dino, and all credit goes to Dino Everett.
Yeah.
He had been in touch with Joe for a long time and just had never gotten the tapes. And I probably met Dino through Jackie, same sort of thing. And there was just this swell of like, okay, something's going to happen. We need to get these tapes transferred. And a little bit is because I think I had already done Giuseppe and that had gotten around, and some shorts, and I was working for the Sundance Film Festival, so I, you know, whatever, street cred and stuff like that. And so Dino actually went up there with the U-Haul. They got it all in a truck. They drove down to USC, and he's been a fan. He's just like us, and had been working on Joe for quite a while. So the project helped get it over the hump. And then Dino, I mean, he's a pro at USC's film archive, and so they have every deck. You know, Nerd Paradise. I mean, they have a couple of Scopitones in there that
Oh,
are
that's
working.
amazing. Yeah, because Scopitones are, so if people don't know, they were basically video jukeboxes in the 60s. I think they started in the 60s, but they project 16 millimeter film inside a jukebox onto a screen, and you'd get to see like, these boots are made for walking, or weird surf music, and they were always theatrical, like on a really weird stage with weird lighting, and it had a seedy kind of vibe to it.
A lot of them.
But I love
not a peep show.
Yeah.
So this is the environment that Dino's in every day in his office. Very lucky, and you know, so I was living in LA then, and Jason was in Tucson, so I just go down there a lot and be the only person who cared about all these stuff along with Dino. And
Dino
but you know,
really
we had a
knows his
list.
stuff. Dino is
He really knows his
amazingly
stuff,
encyclopedic. He's interviewed Dino.
Like he was, yeah, it'd be a great interview for sure.
All right, emergency podcast announcement. This episode will come out immediately after this one. It's just starting to.
It's
starting.
The circle.
Am I going to wake up? Oh my gosh! No, that sounds great.
But do you know, like he was doing, there was a Go-Go's doc that was made. That's pretty good. And, you know, they were at the mask at the start. And so Joe didn't have mask footage, but he has very early footage that's great of the Go-Go's. The filmmakers hit up Dino. And so he goes and gets the tape to transfer it. And a lot of these tapes, and a lot of reason that Joe has this amazing catalog, but it's just so many shows, hundreds and hundreds of shows. And tape was expensive, so he'd save tape. That's why there's not a ton of footage in between songs, because this tape's going to run out. You have to hit pause. And if somebody's going to,
okay.
In the very early days, when 3/4 inch comes around, he might have had hour-long tapes, but that's it, man. It's like a lot of the time, this is 30 minutes, so don't fuck it up. So that's why a lot of these shows are 20 to 24 minutes. That's why there's a lot of start and stop stuff.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah. So he gets this Go-Go's tape out, and he looks, there's a whole Pink section show on the end of it. And this is they're on Bandcamp. In fact, what's on Bandcamp is amazing. They must have, I forget who put it out. If it was, whoever it was, so you can hear Pink section, but to see them, like, no dice. And that was just on the end of this tape that he found. So the archive is safe. It's in a climate controlled place. A lot of it's transferred. There's still a lot more to go. It does end up being kind of the obvious thing. Like somebody's doing a documentary and you license it from Target Video and the band, but then bless Dino and USC, they make an incredibly pro transfer and they do not charge you. They made our DCP so we can have theatrical shows. and did not charge. It's all as part of the archive and part of this official thing that they save and protect.
That's so cool.
Superior Viaduct, by the way, is who put out the pink section.
Oh, right. There you go. Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
And this is just kind of a funny aside, but I was entrusted with Robert Pollard's audio tape collection for Guided by Voices when he was doing Suitcase, which are these 100-song collections that he's done 3 of. And I would do the same thing. I would listen to something that I was like, I've heard all of this. And then at the very end, like the last minute and 20 seconds would be, the song is not on anything. Oh my God. And,
wow.
But I had to just be like, okay, you never know. This is going to be time-based. You have to spend time with it. And then your head's going to whip around all of a sudden. You're like, what? That's not the right order. What's this thing in the middle all of a sudden? So I appreciate anyone who can put the time in, and because I'm sure for this person, it's just like they're in hog heaven.
When he finds this Mutants tape, of course, we're already done. Of course. It was
wow.
Man, we can't, otherwise you would be seeing all that footage in our doc. But, it all worked out because we were able to do this great theatrical project out of it where it's both tapes and our doc in the middle. But when Dino sent me the tape, like I was in tears because it's all of these people that have become my family who are the clients and the bands. And I see them again for the first time.
Right.
And I don't know, what did you think, Jason? Because I'm sure I sent it to you. I mean, me and you are the people who are going to care the most.
It was the same thing because it was like, when all of these Beatles multi-tracks songs were leaked and you could hear it's the same thing where it's like, there's more footage. This isn't just that 20 minutes. These people exist, and here they are seeing the first band of the night and you see them warming up, and it does give a completely different feel to it. Contextualizes all of the later stuff because you're actually processing the same thing that they are. Here's the Mutants and then the Cramps play. And if you get the Blu-ray, there's a whole doc on the Mutants that also has, and their whole show at Napa is on there and everything. But there's a doc that has a bunch of footage of it. And you can hear different members of the band talk about the experience because they all had very different, not everybody was tripping, but
right.
But anyway, so it's fascinating just being able to get that many. It's a diamond, where you're getting all of the different facets from it simultaneously, until you build this holographic image of the actual Napa show. And there actually are recreators of the Napa show. There are people who have done full, like you were saying, you memorized every element. There are people who've done performance art recreations where they each play one of the different people.
It would be a good play.
Yeah.
Like about, the people going there and who they meet and then the Cramps. Did you have to talk to Poison Ivy or do anything in terms of getting their blessing for something like this?
So that's always the question too. The rest of them were gone by the time we started. I think they were the other 3 were gone. We do know Kid Congo because he lives in Tucson now and he's amazing, but he wasn't there. This is before him.
Yes.
So he kind of knew of it. And it ended up being, Poison Ivy has gone on to a sort of a different type of life now, where she doesn't go by Ivy. And we do know 3 people who do still talk to her. And so we kept sending threads and the very obvious thing is just like, man, she's one of the most important I think she's the most important guitarist that no one knows for very obvious systemic reasons, not just that the band wasn't, that she wasn't some burly dude.
No, she's incredible.
Yeah. And she's one of a kind.
Yeah. It made all of our lives better. There's not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure, of course, we're like, oh God, please let me just talk to Ivy for 5 minutes and just say like, thanks for making my life better. But also just like, what is your take? You're the only one left. And she's just not doing Cramp stuff. And that's pretty well known, and not even doing like shirts or anything. But we did send a lot of, we were making this because we thought we'd be making the fuller video. So we definitely sent messages over a couple of years. So we know she's aware of it. I don't know if she's watched it or not.
She's gotten royalties.
Yep. We've paid all the right avenues, because we do have a couple of songs that they wrote. And the crazier thing is we couldn't find any interview with them talking about it. We're just like, how the hell did they never talk about it?
Wow.
And there's only one clip. Was it from Much Music? Was it from that Canadian
for audio? There's
TV
a couple
channel?
of print ones, but audio, that Much Music is it.
Yeah. And they say like, well, it's just Lux saying like, we were looking forever for the right type of crowd, and their shows weren't really perfect. And then we played the show. We knew those were the people we should be playing for. And that's literally all he said. And we're saying, well, we could use this, but then everyone's gonna be like, why didn't you use more? Like, I just,
Right. Yeah.
I had a weird thing with her beforehand because I did this animated short about Eerie Publications, was this horror.
Oh yeah. Warren Publications, Famous Monsters.
Right, but they're the ripoff of Famous. Eerie is a magazine that Warren put out, but Eerie Publications is a very shitty publishing company that put out like Weird and Terror Tales and Witches Tales. And
oh wow,
it's the ones that looked really garish and kind of like a lot of heads being chopped off on the covers, and somehow it's being sold in supermarkets. I was obsessed with this.
What era? Like
this
70s?
Is late 60s, early 70s, well, and throughout the 70s, and they just reprinted the same stories over and over. They did some originals, but a lot of them were just kind of pre-code ones that they would then add more gore to because the publisher, Myron Fast, had access to it. I was obsessed with this company when I was a kid. And so
That's amazing. Has there been a documentary about them yet?
No, but there's a fantastic book. Feral House put it out. Mike Howlett is the guy who wrote it. He's amazing. And I did an animated short where I took all of their covers and I animated them to this Johnson Smith Novelty Company horror record that I bought out of a comic book in the 70s. If you ever read a comic book in the 70s, horror record, that's the one. So
amazing.
And it lined up with a lot of the covers. It was just me trying to teach myself motion graphics, and I'm a Halloween freak. But so I did this thing, and later I found out from a friend of mine who was pals with Ivy that he sent it to her. She loved it, was super obsessed with it, and was sending it to everyone she knew. So I thought, we got an in. There's no way, but things had changed enough, I guess.
I mean, she's earned the right to pivot. I mean, she gave us so much.
Absolutely.
She never, ever took her foot off the pedal of what she was doing and who she was.
And not a wrong note, man.
Both and I love that people being like, my friends in LA being like, oh yeah, Lux and Ivy just held hands walking down the street. Like, we would see that,
Yeah.
The other thing I love in the film is just the honoring the font and language of a Target video. This previous videotape of the Cramps performing a free show for the patients at the Napa Hospital is intended as strictly a documentary, or is it documentary? I can't remember. The videotape was recorded on a 1/2-inch Sony Portapak black and white camera and single microphone. This equipment was the first of its kind made available for public use. And I always loved their things where it's like, hook it up to your stereo, play it loud. Do you know the iconic skull?
The Jolly Roger flag that they would always use.
They blew my mind. I was like, what the hell was that? They're like, do you want to know, Chris? Do you want to know? I'm like, please. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Because again, it was such a tease when that icon came up, because often you'd hear like, Clem Burke playing the beginning of an Iggy Pop thing, and then it's like Target prison bone, and they're not even showing Iggy Pop, and you're like, oh my god, I can't handle this.
Well, and you grow up, at least with VHS. If you don't grow up going to theaters, you're like, Paramount, this is going to be an important film. 20th Century Fox, this fucking bombastic. When I got into Hong Kong films, then you started learning like, oh wait, who are the Shaw Brothers? Who's Golden Princess? It's just as equal. Just like, oh shit, there's the Target logo. Something good's going to happen.
And Joe had such an interesting style where he would intercut all of that, kind of the found footage and all of the other things that a lot of those tapes would have. And so it'd be a mix of like, oh, it's a live band. Oh, and this is kind of a music video with a lot of missiles and Western footage and what's going on here that came from the TV show, that he was using all of that stuff. So
it's amazing.
He was doing a lot of, it's that art influence. He's using this mixed media, element that was, all of them were influenced by that.
If anyone listening would like to fund the Target Video feature,
I will put links to the Blu-ray and stuff for people to get and support, because again, I was blown away. You know, how this was not on my radar yet, and all I've been doing is talking to people about your documentary after this. You know, at first I was like, oh, I'm talking to the Target people and Jill and Jackie, and then all of a sudden I'm like, and do you want to know? Somebody actually made something that I've always wanted to see because, again, no one's cooler than that first wave. Like when you show pictures of Jill, like
Man.
in a Lou Reed shirt or Joe, everyone just looks so fucking cool,
Yeah.
effortless. There's no, it's just like, this is who I am. And Sally, like you mentioned, everyone is just, oh my God. It's just, I thank you. Thank you because you obviously know how much Target means to me. And it was just so fun. Immediately, I was like, this is made by fans. But it's done in such a way that it's going to, if you're not aware of even the Cramps or Target, it's so well done and fascinating. And there were so many rocks that were turned over that I just had no clue about. You know, whether it was, you know, what San Francisco was going through as a culture, Joe's history, you know, the mental health budget cuts that happened later. It's just, there's so much going on in this film. And it's beautifully done. Like, I kind of don't know how you did it with the means you had because it's like really impressive. So hats
Uh,
off to you.
Thanks so much. Yeah. The irony is we probably couldn't have done this when we were young punks. It all, it took a long time to get going, but it probably worked out the best where we at least had a few more skills.
Well, you know how you find a film when in the editing? A lot of times people will do documentaries tell you that, you know, we go in thinking this is what it's going to be about, and maybe even try to steer the questions in that direction. And turns out the film wants to be about something else completely. And one of the things that we found was that was so impressive is how incredibly unjaded a lot of the people in this scene were, because you talk to old punks, there are a lot of people who are like, where's my paycheck, you know? And
Or they're guarded. They're like,
yeah,
oh, you want to talk? Well, it's
right,
going to
right,
cost,
and it makes
you know?
sense, you know, it's
Yeah.
whatever. But Jill could not be more enthusiastic about art to this day. She's just so pure in her enthusiasm for it, you know.
Yeah. I think if you meet them there, they're in awe of what they documented. And I think they just appreciate anyone that it was like what you did mattered.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things I love, just like you getting to make your film, one of the things I love about getting into this podcast is I get to meet people who I'm like, you don't understand. Like what I saw or heard after what you did changed my life and DNA and you know, my history and just a life without Target. uh yeah, it made so many choices for me. It made me not be afraid to find an all ages show, right? It made me
Right.
a little bit have a chip on my shoulder, you know,
Yeah.
like, all right, there are others and these people are fucking cool. I'm not as cool, but I'm okay. You know, like I'm okay. I'm
But
just a,
didn't it help you? Like you could run a video store. You could put what you want in there
oh,
and
I
other
mean,
people
I
are going to find
started
it.
a band pretty, you know, I
Yeah.
was 15. And what's so funny is, you know, I talked to Slint and Red Cross and I'm like, you guys were so young. And they're like, yeah, everybody was. And I'm like, oh, right. We were all like 15 to 19 or, you know, 14. It's like, right.
Isn't that
Wow.
amazing how much like the music of kids, I'm still listening to the thoughts and musical impulses from like people from, you know, 14 to 20. It is still amazingly valid to me to hear Red Cross. I mean, come on, you know,
I know.
it's
Yeah. Amazing.
so fantastic. And some survival research laboratories, I couldn't have conceived of that. You know,
Oh
that
yeah.
was a holy shit, you know, when you see that. What and we've got some amazing interview stuff that we did with Mark. That guy's astounding. You know, just his brain process. You watch it, and he's very open about it all. But he said, I wish we could have included more and more from. There's a little bit in there, but we've got a lot of good stuff. But
I mean, it's amazing. I'm really excited. I hope you get to make the full length Target one, but I will say this thing is really complete. And I guarantee you that everyone listening is going to support this because they want to see it. It's so great.
Not to push the Blu-ray. I wouldn't push the Blu-ray unless it was something I wanted to. But we're super lucky that we made the short. We got what we wanted in it. We were then lucky where we could do this theatrical tour with both full tapes. But then this company named Grasshopper Films was nice enough to put the Blu-ray out. And we get to it. We're like, well, how much extra footage is on the disc? And they're like, fill it up. And so we got to pack it full of extras that wouldn't make sense as a scene in the film. So we have this great thing with Ian MacKay and Jim Cohen talk about how the Cramps helped start the DC scene.
Right.
And that doesn't make sense in here, but it's a good extra. It's a great extra,
Mike
but
did
then also,
a quick doc on Napa. You talked to the woman who wrote the book. It's
Patricia. Those books that are, I just pulled up so I can remember the name of it. It's called Images of America. So it's anytime you see one of these, they're in every library, the little brown. I mean, it's pretty good. Somebody got smart and they're like, oh, you can take all these photos that are public domain and just sell books out of them. But they get somebody, and Patricia's another amazing archivist who used to work at Zoetrope. And she actually went to Napa and she saved a lot of these photos because they were in boxes and closets. And she put this book together, and that's how we found out a lot more about it. So we did a little extra with her, and it was great because she's this place has been around since the 1880s trying to help people. And it's been messy by all means for reasons we know. They tried a lot of things that were not good. And that's not shied away from. That's in this book. Anyway, so we were lucky with Grasshopper putting out the Blu-ray. We got to do a few other threads and we're just lucky to meet the Mutants too. That's just this lost band from this incredible show.
They're so good. Their story is very, very interesting. It's a microcosm of something I love about that kind of first wave punk, which is weirdos and outsiders and where they were coming from, and just this moment when punk makes sense to channel it all into, and the rules weren't written. They could do whatever they wanted, and they very much did. And they changed so dramatically over the course of their, and they have all the usual pitfalls you might expect. You could do a behind the music type bullshit doc on them, but they're very interesting people. And the music they make, I thought, was fantastic. And it's a great pairing with the Cramps. It really makes sense, for the two of them. If you watch the show in sequence, kind of like what, we've packaged together, it's a different experience. It's a different experience. So it's cool. And remastered with extra songs.
Everybody help out. We want more. Well, I want to thank you, Jason and Mike, for coming on and making me, you can tell I'm vibrating. I'm very geeky. I'm very excited about this. The film is great. Again, I will put links to where you can get the Blu-ray and support these independent filmmakers and artists trying to make this. I think it's beautiful that you're giving back to the people who made it. But at the end of every episode, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. So, on a scale of 1 teaspoon of torso sweat from Lux Interior being the lowest, to 1/3 of a cup of torso sweat from Lux Interior being the highest, what do you give the entire Target Video experience and legacy on a scale of 1 teaspoon of torso sweat from Lux Interior being the lowest to 1/3 of a cup of torso sweat of Lux Interior being the highest?
Oh, I gotta be 1/3 of a cup every 4 hours.
Right, I'll have a 1/3 cup of Lux Interior sweat after I've had 2 other cups.
That's the right answer. I have it right here. It is a 1/3 cup, 1/3 of a cup right here, as you can see. It's the right answer. You're both right. We're all right. Thank you both for making this beautiful film. And I'm so excited that people are going to get the full story. Thank you again. And I'm really excited to see what you do next.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show's a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie, and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye!